Utah, give me 2.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to that blockbuster new release wall of our memory. We grab a copy off that shelf, we pop it in our VCR and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that guy's Mike.
Hey, while you listen to this, drink along with Uncle Red.
And together we're here to help you navigate all those landmines littered down memory lane. So guys, this is our special 2025 Halloween series. Mike, we're calling it the Werewolf Their Wolf series.
What a wolf.
A genre we've long neglected for a very, very long time. So we felt it was time to give those movies their due, Mike, and talk about lycanthropy.
That's right. You'll notice a common theme in werewolf movies where they seem to have a short lifespan.
Yeah.
You'll know what I mean after you hear about a couple of these movies.
They come in cycles, no pun intended, right? So
yeah. Well, that's a modern it's a modern myth according to this movie, Silver Bullet.
Fair enough.
It's a myth. Yeah. You see only movies apparently.
Well, another myth we like to dispel is that we're always sharp for these podcasts, so we're kind of half in the bag on this one, guys. You'll have to forgive us. We started our celebration a little early. So we're not going to be as sharp as our usual tacks, Mike. But
you have to, imitate. It's a life imitates art thing. We're doing our Gary Busey right now.
Gary Busey tends to kill some of our brain cells. Let's be fair. So all in all, guys, happy Halloween! Tis the season, and we're excited to bring this special Halloween series to you. So let's get going, y'all. We're going to talk about the first salvo here for Halloween 2025. Mike, is going to be Silver Bullet from 1985.
Wow. A movie I'd never seen before. And this was like, I don't know how the Stephen King featurette, escaped my view.
Or as some people might call it, the Hardy Boys meet Reverend Werewolf.
Yes.
Oh, Gary Busey again. All right, so this gem was directed by a guy named Daniel Attias. This was his first film, Mike.
Yeah.
He's going on to be a pretty prolific director in the TV genre. He's done over like 90 shows, a lot of Showtime shows like Ray Donovan, things like that. He's also did a good chunk of The Wire, so he's been around for a very, very long time. He kind of gave up films after this. I wonder why. It was written by the man himself, Stephen King. I went with you, Stephen King sole-only screenplays. He took over this. He's got 400 writing credits, Mike.
Wow.
To his name. That's just for movies now. That's not talking about all his other stuff.
Let's talk about the name that first comes at you when you watch this movie, though. It's Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah, there we go.
That is the seal of mediocrity. You see that name and you know what you're going to get right after the bat. You're going to get a cheap score. You're going to get cinematography that's going to be on the level of like ABC Movie of the Week. Yeah. You're going to get actors that need a paycheck. You're going to get actors you recognize, but you don't know their name. It's that kind of movie you're in for.
Yeah, say what you want, but the best thing that guy did give us was Giada. Have your spaghetti, Mike?
No.
Alcohol has been absorbed in the spaghetti.
Spaghetti? Spaghetti? Is that how you say it?
Spaghetti.
This gem had a $7 million budget and was released in October 11th, 1985. So, Mike, I know you had never seen this before, so the cast probably struck you as a interesting one. So why don't you talk us through the cast of characters for this one, big guy?
Oh, sure. I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to give you just broad descriptions. You're going to have the one guy that was in Lost and played, he was John Locke.
Uh-huh.
He's the sheriff in this one. He's also in the movie Stepfather, so you might know him from there.
Yeah.
You have the one guy, and he plays a reverend in this movie. And as soon as you see him, you're gonna be like, "That guy's a bad guy in a lot of stuff." I bet he's the werewolf. You would be right. How did you know that?
Maybe not in 1985 though.
He had already been in he was a bad guy in Dune before that, and a couple other movies with there was a Chuck Norris movie he's a bad guy in. Heartbreak Ridge came out at the same time. He's a bad guy in that one.
Must have missed that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He has the look. Let's just say.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. He was on Twin Peaks as a weirdo too.
Yeah, there you go. You had the guy who played the Malibu police chief in The Big Lebowski, and didn't he? He didn't like Lebowski's jerk off name or his jerk off face.
Who did?
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, he plays the dad. He plays Marty, dad. Marty is Cory Haim in this movie, he's the one recognizable name probably most people would know. He doesn't have a license to drive in this movie, but he rides around on his wheelchair. He plays a quote-unquote crippled.
Yeah, that's what they call him, right?
Our narrator, who, she's voicing this movie over, based on her childhood past from the spring of '76 or whatever. You had the guy that was from Reservoir Dogs. He's a bartender in this movie, but he was Joe Cabot in Reservoir Dogs.
That's right.
And you have another guy that plays kind of one of the town ruffians. He's in a couple of different. I think it was an Independence Day as like a military guy. You would recognize his face. You'd be like, "That's that guy." He was in that. He was in that TV show on ABC with the other cripple guy.
Rocking a mustache in this one.
That's
wonderful.
right. Yes. And you know what? That's enough. That's all you need to know about the cast.
You did your best, honey. Just take a break. So we left out the biggest part, of course, Mike, was Gary Busey.
Well, we already covered that one, yeah.
Yeah, so this role was considered by John Candy first, but he bailed out. You mentioned Lawrence Tierney here. That's who is also from Reservoir Dogs. Also Elaine Bennis's dad. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The narrator here and the sister to Marty, Megan Follows, was actually considered by Jennifer Connelly, but she went on to do other movies. So this is based off the short story Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King from 1983. Pretty decent read. I have the graphic novel of that still to this day, Mike. Pretty good.
But his short stories never translate into good movies.
Not quite. It's filmed almost entirely in Wilmington, North Carolina, Mike, just right up the road. So that was. I'm sure you recognize a few local landmarks there.
Burgal, yes.
Yeah. We talked about Dino De Laurentiis here and his incredibly high standards. Stephen King, the director, wanted to go a different route with the monster. They didn't want to have the monster be so visible. Just wanted to have it be an implied type thing, kind of like Jaws. Dino said, "No, I want a monster." And what you saw on the screen was probably one of the least scary werewolves of all time. The costume was fabricated entirely out of like polystyrene and real human beard hair, Mike.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it looked kind of weird. Kind of looked like one of the Showbiz Pizza animatronic guys, but we'll
even had like the little floppy ears. That always kind of takes away a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a little bit. Roger Ebert gave this a thumbs up, Mike. So I mean, you might want to change. You might want to course correct here. There's a lot to talk about. So, but movies like this are pretty typical in the '80s, and we'll kind of get to that here as we go. So, other movies going on in the theater. Speaking of the '80s, so before this movie came out in October, you had things in the theater like Jagged Edge and Commando, Mike.
All right.
This movie came out on the 11th, along with Remo Williams. The Adventure Continues.
Fred Ward.
I don't remember where it started, but it continued in October. The week after this, you had such gems as Reanimator come out, as well as To Live and Die in L.A., which is a movie we talked about a lot. We probably should cover at some point. You had A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 out in theaters the week after this, so that was a very busy, spooky Halloween back in 1985. Top movies that year in total, though, you had Back to the Future, of course, Beverly Hills Cop, Rambo, Rocky IV, Cocoon, and Silver Bullet didn't come until about 75 here. Right?
So you had two movies with Martys in them. Wow, that's crazy.
The year of the Marty. The music scene, Mike, we can't ignore the radio when we talk about a nostalgia podcast. So you had two songs by Wham on the top 5. You had Careless Whisper and Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go, Mike. Foreigner was asking the perpetual question, I want to know what love is.
Show me.
I want you to show me. Some supergroup called Live Aid putting out the song We Are the World. Looking back, it's one of the most cringy videos you've ever seen in your entire life. But remember how good we felt at the Species when that came out, Mike? We thought we were doing such good in the world, and
no, just to see Cyndi Lauper jumping up and down for fist clench, that was great.
Yeah, and Bob Dylan figuring out what the hell is going on. Yeah, what am I doing here?
I think he showed up he showed like at 3 a.m. and just kind of warbled some lyrics and left.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
REO Speedwagon attested that they could not fight this feeling anymore. That was the number 4 song in the world, and he had Starship coming in at number 5.
Wait.
You want to take a guess?
I'm going to say
It's the good song, Mike.
Who Built the City?
There you go.
Yeah, on rock and roll.
Marconi plays the rumba, Mike. Always playing corporation games, Mike. You know how we are. Something's going on 85, Mike. You get yourself a brand new Pontiac Sunbird for $8,600 back then. You could put gas in that thing for $1.20 a gallon. And when you're driving to the movie theater, you would have to shell out $2 for a bargain matinee to see this movie. So $2 ain't bad, Mike.
No, I'll take
For
it.
this, yeah. A Super Bowl ad in 1985 would cost you about $500,000, Mike. But now it's $8 million for that ad. Because, the NFL is so important. The Super Bowl is the Super Bowl is America's cultural epicenter now.
Lots of eyeballs on the screen.
Where a bunch of drunk fatzos watch a 4-hour game that's for a 60 minutes worth of action. And
picture Gary Busey on a couch.
Yeah, exactly. Screaming at his TV. A bunch of people never vote in their life or complain about how good the commercials are. That's what we are as a nation, Mike. But we digress. This is the year pesto made a big entrance into the culinary scene, Mike. Everybody wanted pesto and everything. Pesto craze sweeping the 85 culinary platter. It's the year DirecTV premiered, putting a bunch of ugly dishes outside of people's trailers. So there you go. This is the first year for California pizza, Mike. Because they put pesto on all their pizzas, probably.
That's right. You can buy a frozen one for about $11, which is a real bargain.
Yeah. So, hey, man, we're like 10 minutes in. We're not talking about silver bullets. So,
silver bullet. Oh, of course. I'll go pop one right now. Gary Busey be proud.
Yeah. Holy jumped up, bald-headed Jesus Paloming. So, Mike, I think you're ready. So, why don't you go ahead and hit the button? So it opens up with the standard Howard trope where you see the full moon up in the sky.
They show it upside down.
They do. They do.
Why? I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, they correct it later on, but this is your opening shot of the moon, and it's upside down. I mean,
yeah.
What do we got, dealer in us? Come on.
Let's go with symbolism for now, at least, right?
No, so, whatever.
But you get the creepy, happy music. It sets the mood. It's almost like a romantic comedy is about ready to start here, Mike. But
there's a lot of happy, synthesizer music in this movie, which is off-putting.
Yeah, there's elements of dark humor and comedy throughout here, which I think lended itself to kind of a good and entertaining view. But we'll see how that holds up. So the movie starts off with the narrator, the Janie in this case, the young female lead here, Cory Haim's older sister, telling a story. So she knows she lives, Mike. So that's your first strike there.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah, opens up with this guy named Arnie at the railroad tracks at night.
He's the manager. He's the manager from Major League.
Yeah, that's right. He's slightly more sober than you, Mike, but not a whole lot.
That's right.
And
he loves Rheingold beer, which is the beer of the New York Mets for some reason.
That's right.
My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer, friendly, freshening, and happily dry beer. Dry means clean and it's clear. Dry means thirst-quenching beer. Join the millions who buy Rheingold beer, extra dry.
Going back to the baseball tie-in, very Mike. But he's out there working the late shift. The railroad must put the really important people on. The important job, the drunks. They must get the important jobs at night, Mike. But that
must be. He's
doing some rail work, and he hears a noise, of course, and then we get the shadow of this giant wolfen creature, and it knocks his block off, Mike. Dehumanizes him.
Keep that and bookmark that. Yeah. This werewolf has the power to slap a guy's head off with one swipe of his paw. But I want you to remember that for later on.
Yeah.
Just put
Yeah. So knocked his block off.
You booger.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Martz. But anyway, so he gets killed, and then we get introduced to the main characters via Cory Haim playing Marty. A roller boy, if you will, Mike. Pair of the roller boys. But he's confined to a wheelchair. He's a young kid. He's got his annoying sister, Janie, and his parents, and his Uncle Red, Mike, played by Gary Busey.
That's right.
I think of Greek descent, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, from his character in Point Break. This is before his motorcycle accident, so he still had some of his faculties.
His eyes look normal, too.
Yeah, he doesn't have the crazy eyes, but that would quickly change. But he's the drunk uncle, the malcontent, the black sheep of the family. That's got him and Marty had built a bond, and there's more to that as we go. So you get introduced to those guys, and then There's a couple scenes where the local town people get played out. One, this woman who's become pregnant by her boyfriend. He dumps her, and she considers suicide. And they show her in her bedroom that night attempting it, and then the wolf stops, breaks in and slashes her up. There's a big fat wrestling fan I was a big fan of here.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah, and he hears some noises out in his greenhouse. And he goes out. He's watching some old school wrestling. Mike.
NWA wrestling.
Yeah,
too.
because the
old school.
The werewolf interrupts rudely his viewing of a Kerry Von Erich match, and he goes out and to investigate. And of course, the wolf comes up out of the floorboards and kills him. So the town's in a bit of a funk here, Mike. Local residents are dying off. It's pretty scary. And you got the big 4th of July parade coming up and everything. It's really killing the mood.
Don't forget we've had a double full moon, too. That's pretty crazy.
Exactly. So Marty's friends with this bratty little kid named Brady, who terrorizes his older sister, Marty's older sister, Janie. So he's in for it. He's out there flying a kite one day, and then he gets taken out, too. So Stephen King likes to kill kids.
I think it's nature telling us something when there's a kid that's flying a smiley face kite when it's late afternoon and he's still flying it apparently at night to be attacked by a werewolf. That kid probably didn't need to be around.
Yeah, it's survival of the fittest. You got to go with that, Mike. Sure, but the werewolf makes his full reveal here to kill. And the werewolf is not quite that scary. He kind of looks like the Minnesota Timberwolves sport mascot.
Yeah, like I said, it's very comical looking.
Yeah. So they cut back to Marty's home. Uncle Red's hanging out, being a problem, getting drunk in front of Marty, and his mom doesn't like that. So there's some pressure there. Speaking of pressure, the local townspeople might decide that they're going to take justice in their own hands because
vigilantes.
The local inept police force by John Locke here, not doing anything. So they start their mob justice led by the barkeeper here, Mike, who's got a baseball bat that says the Peacemaker on it, right?
That's right.
Etched on it. That's played by Lawrence Tierney and a bunch of our character actors that Mike so eloquently talked through before. And they'll head out into the woods in the middle of the night, Mike, because that's when the best time to find somebody.
That's right. They had that fog machine working overtime, too.
They sure did, yeah. So it looked like a goth band concert, but that's kind of a scary scene where they're in the middle of the woods and the fog's got them and they're lost and they know something's in those woods with them, and much like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, they come up out of the fog and start picking off everybody one by one, knocking heads off, Mike.
And you don't know if there's more than one werewolf at this point. You're like, wow, this guy's pretty swift if there's only one.
But to go back to what I think you were foreshadowing earlier, Mike, Lawrence Tierney goes after the wolf with the bat, and the bat is taken away by the wolf, and the wolf starts swinging that bat like Dave Justice.
and that's comedy for you.
Yeah, so I think the weapon of choice for most werewolves is a illegal slugger. Let's be honest. That's what all the folklore reads for me, anyway, Mike.
That's just fake. That's Hollywood.
So that leads to all these people get killed here, and then there's this amazing fun little jump cut where there's this mega funeral where there's 14 caskets in the church, and the pastor here, Reverend Lowe, who's played by Everett McGill. For those that might know, he was Stilgar in the original Dune. Good guy, actually, Mike. He's the town.
Oh, darn it.
He's the town reverend, and he's trying to show some sort of solace and help keep people calm. But he has this weird scene where all the people in the congregation start turning into wolves, Mike, and busting through the coffins, and it's a special effects extravaganza. If you'll say, Michael, a lot of makeup. Probably their whole makeup budget was spent on this one scene.
This was $6 million of the $7 million. Probably.
Yeah, and then of course the scene ends. It's just a dream, Mike. He's in bed, standing shaking that old trope.
The other $1 million went for Gary Busey's liquor.
Easily. I think you're being conservative.
I wrestled a bear once.
But it kind of foreshadows something here if you haven't seen this movie before. But maybe think something up with this reverend, right? So the 4th of July fireworks are canceled. That was a big deal for Marty. So Uncle Red, always playing the good cop, gets Marty a big stash of fireworks to fire off later that fall. Because he doesn't want his favorite nephew to not have fireworks. So in the interim here, he had made him a motorized wheelchair, Mike, which I don't know how it's street legal, but it's basically a tricycle that can exceeds 55 miles an hour at
It was
least.
passing cars on the highway, so
Yeah.
you got to imagine it was going pretty darn fast.
So Marty takes the his hot rod out to the local bridge and starts shooting off his fireworks. And he's enjoying himself, and of course, the werewolf shows up, Mike.
He thinks he's turning into werewolf.
Oh yeah.
To take out Marty. This is this famous bridge scene here where, in a bit of fear and panic, Marty puts a bottle rocket in the werewolf's eye, right into his eye, Mike. And the werewolf, painful.
Good shot.
Good shot, right? And then Marty drives his little 3-wheeler home, and then he goes to tell his sister, tried to convince her that hey, there's a werewolf in town that's what's responsible for all the murders. It takes some doing, Mike, but he tells her of the event and says if you find somebody in town with one eye, that's the werewolf. And unconvinced but placating him, she goes around town collecting bottles. Mike, remember we used to do that, collect bottles
and cans. Yeah.
It's the good old days where you get a 16-ounce 8-pack of Coke. That was the best, man. But we digress. So she's collecting her bottles, and she comes across the Reverend and turns out the Reverend's got a big eye patch on, Mike.
Dun dun dun.
Dun 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 dun. So this is a pretty good twist. It's this big plot twist revealed, and she runs home to tell Marty what's happened, and Marty feels that he's got because he's done some folklore, he's done some reading, he knows they've got to kill this thing. But he in the interim here, he decides to send it like harassing letters. Mike, he sends the I love when he sends the note in the ransom note font.
Yes.
Back in the day, people for some reason used to cut out words out of magazines and paste them into sentences so as not to be identified, Mike. Whereas maybe a typewriter would work. Their handwriting could be identified, but whatever. But there you go. So Marty's driving home one day, and the Reverend shows up in his Ford LTD, and there's this big chase scene, Mike. I loved it. I like Marty's stuntman in the high-speed scenes. That was really funny.
Yes. Good wig.
What's that on your head? What's that on your head?
Yeah, but they found the tiniest stuntman with the biggest Cory Haim wig they could find. He's speeding down the road, and they come onto this bridge, and he kind of rams them into the bridge. And we almost had a near Mac-and-Me moment here, Mike, where this.
Yeah, I thought it was going to tumble down into a quarry, but unfortunately, no.
But a local comes in and saves him right at the end there, but not before they have this little confrontation where the Reverend gets out of his car after Marty had kind of gone into the safety of a covered bridge and kind of rationalizes what he had to do because, he's said he's been cursed with this thing and, killing the girl who was going to commit suicide saved her from a life of hell because that's a sin in Catholic religion. And
yeah.
He says, well, I'm just going to throw you into the river. So he's not that, accommodating. But of course, the local townie shows up and saves Marty at that point. So, and at least the big finale where they go back and try to convince Gary Busey of anything real, which is a task in and of itself, right? But they explain to Uncle Red that there's a werewolf in town, and he's skeptical, Mike. It's pretty sad when Gary Busey is the rational one in your story.
Sometimes your imagination will make you think there's something that cuts hay is actually a soft knit sweater.
The voice of reason, if you will.
Yeah, but he finally concedes, and it's just to humor him for the first part. But then he realizes that the Reverend's blue car paint had rubbed off on his motorcycle. So he did a little bit of Columbo here, Mike. We're just
forensic analysis.
That's detective right. Work. And then he decides, Marty says, "Well, Uncle Red, I need you to take my silver medallion and my sister's silver medallion, melt it down because we got to make a silver bullet." And the movie takes a little weird cul-de-sac here where we go in and watch this master craftsman guy forming the silver bullet, and yeah.
I don't. They tried it. They kind of hand wave the whole folklore of, the werewolf doesn't need a full moon to transform, but he gets stronger when the moon is full.
Yeah, full moon means he's the most wolfy.
And yeah, exactly. But then they still kind of believe that the fact that silver will destroy a werewolf. So that kind of was like a double message formula.
Yeah, well, they said that was the most consistent of all the folklore that silver would kill it. Right. So we don't have time to explain all this stuff. We got a movie to get to. So So at the end, for the film's finale here, Gary Busey convinces the parents to go take a romantic trip that he says he won through Publishers Clearinghouse, which they seem to buy. When your drunk single uncle comes and moves into your house and tells you gives you a free prize in New York, they're not even skeptical.
At the Plaza, and like one of the top 5 hotels in Manhattan, and here comes your drunk uncle's like, oh, look what I won,
on Halloween on a full moon where half the town's been murdered, but they just take off and leave their kids with their drunk uncles. So,
sure,
it was the 80s. Hey, everybody did that back then. So they're staying up late and hoping that, using themselves as bait, hoping the werewolf will come. And then, of course, he does, Mike. And the werewolf comes in, breaks through the door, right? It doesn't open, just smashes through.
Comes right through.
Door's open, honey. But he comes in and he throws Gary Busey around. I think that was actually Gary Busey. I was looking.
Yeah, there was no stuntman for that one. I think he enjoyed that.
He took a header into an armoire and a big vanity. That was pretty fun. And of course, in the scuffle, Mike, the silver bullet falls down the furnace vent, and Marty wiggles himself out of that chair. There were several instances where Cory Haim actually uses his legs here. I didn't want to nitpick that.
No, yeah.
I don't think he spent years and years of method acting.
He didn't do the Gary Oldman tippy toes thing.
Exactly, but he did take a few steps here, but he did cheat a little bit. But hey, it's Cory Haim, God bless him.
Yeah.
But he uses little tiny fingers to pull the billet out of the vent, and he holds the 45 revolver, Mike. That's got no kick whatsoever.
Apparently, man.
Marty frantically, as the werewolf's closing in, after Gary Busey had been fighting with a log and a poker.
I wrestled a bear once.
It's all gets scratched up. Cory Haim loads up and lets him have it, man. Point blank, and shoots him in the other eye.
He's amazing. For bottle rocket one eye, and his first time ever shooting gun, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the other, wow.
If this werewolf had any kind of competent safety glasses in this movie, he'd still be alive to this day. PPE, lycanthropes, whatever. So he dies there, and the trope here is that when after they die, they transform back to their original human form, and but not before we get one last jump scare out of the guy, Mike. And I like how this nude body is hanging out in the middle of the living room, but no one pays attention to that, I suppose. But
explain that one to the police.
Yeah, I like when he dies. His werewolf polystyrene balloon kind of deflates. And they pull the fur back out of it, and but there you go, and that's the end of their movie. They all kind of hug and kiss, and Marty has this stinger at the end where he says, "You're hurt?" He says, "Yeah, I think so. My legs," and he makes fun of his legs at his own expense. Saying, "I don't think I can walk again." Everybody has a good laugh about that. And then you get into some very odd ending credits music here, Mike. That we can't account for, but
wonderful. And the song made no sense. The rest of the movie was fantastic.
Yeah, we've been doing this podcast for almost 4 years now, and we've yet to find any real logic tying a movie's end credit scenes to its actual music. So this just keeps the streak going, Mike. With extreme prejudice, let's say. All right, so there you go. You just saw an 80s horror film. Good for you, right? So let's talk about awards and accolades, Mike. This won't take long. This had a $4 million opening. Ended up doing a $12 million domestic haul. Did not have a worldwide release, but got mid to fair reviews, about 50% ratings on the tomato meter.
Roger Ebert.
Yeah, except for Roger Ebert, who was a big fan of it. It's got a good horror ending. It's got a decent story. I mean, this was made its bones on HBO and cable. This movie is the definition what a VHS horror rental would be. This was probably on the shelf and while your local mom and pop shops quite frequently. The takeaway from the pop culture standpoint was with this movie. So I got hooked on it in cable, and we'll talk about it here at the end here. But that's it. No real awards or anything like that, Mike, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah. No Oscars,
wow.
no BAFTAs, no
special effects. Come on.
No Kids' Choice Award, no nothing.
Original music score.
There you go. So let's put it to our grumpy meter kids. So this is the part of our podcast. It's kind of the premise where we go back and watch movies from our early years of our collective youth as early film fans, and we watch them again through the filtered eyes of grumpy jerks and decide.
Well, we sit in our high tower and judge everything.
With our ebony towers and pass judgment unfairly. So, Mike, why don't you head us off? This might have been your first one, so let's talk about if it was your first watch, and then why don't you just give me an overall impression of the film?
It felt like a movie that was. There was a period of time when Stephen King movies were all on like ABC. There was it seemed like every other year there was an ABC Stephen King movie back in maybe from the late '80s into like the mid '90s, even in almost in the 2000s. And it's what it felt like. It didn't feel like a movie that was actually in a theater when I watched it. It was, you had the cheap synthesizer music. You had actors that were, in that grade B, grade C list of like casting. You can see the casting, lady or man looking at this and going, wow, who do we got? There's this young up and coming kid, named Cory something or another. We can try him. And there's that washed up guy who was in that movie.
Is it the Feldman? No, we couldn't get the Feldman.
No, I couldn't get the Feldman. He's too busy doing one of the Friday the 13th movies. But yeah, then there's this washed up guy. He was in DC Cab and Losing It. Remember that movie that he really flopped in?
You mean the Buddy Holly guy?
Yeah, that guy. He won an Oscar.
Really?
Yeah. He's willing to take a paycheck.
He's willing to do this.
Yeah, and then we got our regular cast of De Laurentiis, stars and people in the local area of North Carolina that want to join in.
Yeah,
but it all had that same, like I said, just the feeling of it. Like you said in the start of this, it was for what it was a adequate '80s horror movie, and it never for me it was silliness, and it was but that's part of it. It had the it didn't take itself seriously, obviously, with the comedy and the
it couldn't dare.
Yeah, no, and just the whole idea of his wheelchair being named the Silver Bullet. I can see why it never became like a cult classic. And like I said, even when you brought it up a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Silver Bullet, what is that? I thought it was a movie of Meatloaf in it, and I was pretty close. But anyway, it was okay. It was fun. It was if you could today type in an AI, do me a werewolf movie with some silly moments in it. This would be pretty close to what you would get. I think this is a technical nitpick, and I apologize for this, but this is just how I work. There was no origin story. You have no idea why one solo person in this town posing as a reverend would have been infected with lycanthropy and be a werewolf. I had a little question on the whole premise of how werewolf works, as far as the science of it. Right. That'd be the one thing that I would be kind of like a little mystified by. But like that nitpick for a movie that's silly, it's a De Laurentiis flick. Going in, it's silly. So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good take, Mike. I agree. I am going back to your point about Meatloaf, Mike. I think this is probably the most Meatloaf compatible movie we've ever done. It could accommodate Meatloaf at any level.
Yeah, you said John Candy earlier, and I was like, no, not John Candy. Meatloaf. He could have switched places with Gary Busey, no problem.
Yeah, and I kind of like the fact that at Buck Convention didn't give you an origin story. I think back then you could keep a few things vague. You didn't have to spoon feed everything to everybody all the time. So they make a point of it. The actress Janie says maybe he doesn't even know how he became a werewolf. It was kind of a thing. So, but anyway, so this was a big hit. This is a very selfish pick for me, Mike. I'll concede that. This is one of my favorite movies as a teenager. I had a VHS copy of this that I recorded off HBO that I just watched a lot, me and my friends. This was kind of in our rotation for those like summer nights, summer sleepovers and things. We would always watch this film. So I was surprised, watching it now. It was pure nostalgia for me. I was amazed at how much of the dialogue I remembered. Like when the fat guy's watching wrestling and there's a low blow, he goes, "Oh, that hurts my parts." We say that to each other all the time. And, I'll Busey's dialogue and the sound, the music. I thought the music, the soundtrack was pretty good. It was very creepy and atmospheric.
Yeah, they even had a harpsichord in a couple scenes.
typical. And there's like some Psycho style call out and things like that, music tones, and I thought that all worked pretty good. But this is a pure nostalgic trip for me. It was silly. It was violent enough to be scary, but not violent enough to where like a modern teenager could watch this or pre could watch this at a sleepover. It's not that thing. I think it's to me it was like one of those movies where it just I hadn't seen this probably in at least 30 years. And when we talked about doing werewolf movies, something overcame me. This is the first one that came up, like divine intervention, if you will. It's like, I know. Let's talk about that one. That was one of my favorite ones. But I remember why I liked it as a teenager because I turned into a teenager watching this, and I became that kid again. And that's kind of the magic of these movies. But it's also kind of a theme that's kind of typical of Stephen King. This kind of leads us to our next segment here. So this was a true Stephen King type feel of a movie, right, Mike? And we talked about his how prolific he's been in our lives. So here's some weird things about Stephen King, Mike. He's like 6'4". A lot of people don't realize that.
Oh man.
He published his first book in 1974, and since then, none of this has gone out of print, which is phenomenal. That's like 300 books that have not yet are still in print. That's just amazing. He's in a rock band called the Rock Bottom Remainder. That's where he and some other famous writers like Scott Turow and Amy Tan and Dave Barry get together and play music together. He plays guitar. I think they actually played for the opening of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony in 2012. He doesn't take it very seriously. He says, we play music as well as Metallica writes novels, which is, I guess, a great line. He's been a staple in modern horror, but the amount of material he's contributed to TV and movies is phenomenal. We're going to get that here. But first, Mike, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Hey kids, Mike and Justin here from Grumpy Nostalgia.
Hola.
Hey, we're just taking a break from stuffing razor blades in our Halloween candy here. It's just to announce our special upcoming Halloween series, Werewolf.
Werewolf?
Yeah. What? Werewolf.
But this year our theme is werewolves, Mike.
All right, there's a bad moon on the rise.
That's right. So we decided we're going to cover Silver Bullet from 1985 with Cory, Haim, and Gary Busey.
Oh, that's right, Gary Busey.
That's right. And that top things off, we'll also be covering American Werewolf in London, starring Dr. Pepper pitchman David Naughton, Mike.
Yes.
It's a guaranteed 2 weeks full of hair and teeth and debauchery and murder, and that's just Gary Busey alone. So guys, don't miss the Halloween series 2025 for Grumpy Nostalgia. Werewolf, coming soon to a podcast near you.
Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?
Scared of you. Okay, Mike, we're back.
All right.
So we thought, for the finale of the episode here, we'd kind of talk about this phenomenon of Stephen King being such a big part of our lives. And so for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal, very Halloween edition, we're going to talk about Stephen King, some of our most favorite adaptations and some of our least favorite adaptations, Mike. So let's just be kind of informal about this. I don't want to do a countdown or anything like that. But why don't you take the reins? Let's talk about some of your best Stephen King, maybe your least, and somewhere in the middle, or just what are some of your instances of that kind of phenomenon with Stephen King, Mike?
I went through my Stephen King phase where I read like at least 5 or 6 of his novels and a couple of those like compendiums like Night Shifts and stuff like that a few years ago. And I think a couple of them occurred to me, like Carrie. I consider Carrie just as far as I'm coming at like a purist reader to screen kind of view. But like that movie kind of represented the book so well for me because it really emphasized the sexual repression of the mom, and it really captured that in the movie, and they hit some of the major points, and really didn't deviate from his novel and the theme of it as much as some of the other ones I've seen. And then it was well played, and for me that one stood out. Another one I kind of liked was Misery, a very long book and a very hard book to like bring to screen. It had a lot of psychological bits in it that, again, a lot of King stuff has kind of that first person omniscient where you don't know a lot of what you can't. It's hard to translate that to a movie,
right?
But as far as the fear of James Caan and the sinisterness of the Kathy Bates character, I feel like that one for me at least was a really good representation of the novel.
Yeah,
and what it did contain. It was, like I said, it's a huge. There's so many of Stephen King's books that are just doorstops. You know what I mean? Like just huge, and it's hard to put that in an hour 45, 2 hour length feature. But for me, those were the two standouts as far as what I could. There's a lot of stinkers as we'll get into, but those two were good ones for me.
So I'm with you there, Mike. And I tried to not go like commercial here, but of course you want to talk about The Shining and all that. Kind of thing. The Shining is one of my favorite movies of all time, but from as far as an adaptation goes, it's as someone who's read the book, it's nowhere close, and I think that was his biggest criticism of it, if he could find one. I think Creepshow is a good example of what his themes and all that, but that's not really based on books and things like that. I'd probably go like Shawshank because that's a great movie. Also, almost per page what the novella was, and I really like that. Same with Stand By Me. Not kind of non-traditional Stephen King things, not really horror films, but those things really stuck out to me as like the essence of. You mentioned those books being doorstops. I like that because that's all character development, and a lot of people just kind of rush through these horror things and make them kind of shallow and thin and a little binary sometimes. But yeah, so I felt like those really kind of came off as some of his best adaptations. But there's so many to go through.
That's incredible.
I tried to look at the master list here to choose from, and it's like I got tired of it. I was like, I can't go through all these. I had to go with my gut. But those two, I think, for me, like on the good side, for sure. Anything that doesn't really square up as well, Mike, for you on the other side?
I'm going maybe more a couple middle of the road ones for me. I would consider as the kids would say, meh. Dead Zone. Another book that's enormous. It contains way too much of that first person kind of thought. Christopher Walken is great for the casting of that, and he plays the character really well. But there's so much that's trimmed out of the movie. Again, the basic theme is there, but it's just it doesn't come across on the screen very well. Martin Sheen plays kind of the pseudo bad guy in the movie, who's the greedy, the guy who's trying to gain power. Well done, but it's just not. It's just kind of meh. And then the other one for me was Pet Sematary, which I think at the time when I watched in the theater, I was almost mad. I wasn't like Battlefield Earth mad, but it was still one of those like, wait a minute, they really deviated from the book here, and it was kind of like, wait, what is he doing, Again, it was creepy. It was a pretty good movie, but it just did not capture the book the way I thought it should. So that'd be two in the May category for me. Meh.
Yeah, I like the way you categorize them, so I'll kind of follow suit. So in that kind of theme for me, there's a couple too. Needful Things, great movie. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I read that book though, and that book is so atmospheric, and I guess it just couldn't compete with my imagination. I think that's where these kind of things fall apart. Because it was such an in-depth character study of this little shopkeeper, and I loved it. The movie was great. If in its own vacuum, it's a really good movie, but it didn't really. I had the same thing with It. I mean, I love those movies a lot, and that's one of my favorite books of all time. But the movies miss a little bit because they have to, because it's a 1,400-page novel, and it shifts generations, it shifts decades up a little bit, and the second part of It. The second movie is, I think, lost a little steam with me, but because if you've read the book, it tells both stories in tandem. It kind of alternates chapters, and it goes from the kids' finale to their adult version finale. And he was high as a kite on cocaine when he's writing this too. So it's just a fever dream. There's 300 pages of just fury, and you build up this like psychological pace in your brain that nothing on film was ever going to be able to keep up with. Again, this doesn't discredit the movie at all. I think those movies are great, but in terms of like adaptations, which we're trying to hold to here, I think those would be my next. So Mike, let's go with the bottom tier here.
All right.
Just flat out, just get the old blood boiling. So
that's right.
Anything on that front?
This is what you wait for.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention earlier Salem's Lot, but like I said, that movie scared me so much I don't want to mention it.
Yeah, I just watched the most recent one on HBO, like the remake of the remake of the remake this weekend. It was okay. Not so good. Yeah.
Okay, say no more.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to kind of let's cycle back to what I said earlier. There were too many Stephen King movies that were, you basically take a spoonful and you make a whole gallon. And one of those would be like Lawnmower Man, which is really short story in Night Shift, and it's a good short story, but it's dragged out to an hour and a half movie with a very tired looking Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, he did not want to be in that movie, No,
he did not. And then there's at least 2, maybe 3 sequels afterwards. It was just not even the same story anymore. It was just like, what the heck am I watching at one point? And it became like a computer AI kind of thing.
Yeah, some producer got a Commodore 64 one day and said, hey, let's make a movie out of this.
It's possibly the worst. But the worst Stephen King movie I've seen is Maximum Overdrive.
There it is. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, filmed in North Carolina by chance. But yeah, it's really, again, it's another movie where, the idea, the premise is, mechanical objects come to life.
Yeah.
From a short story. And Emilio Estevez, to say no more, most of the movie spent at a gas station where trucks kind of circle them menacingly.
Yeah.
And it's just so poorly done. I don't know if De Laurentiis was behind this one, but it had...
No, ironically, this was written and directed by Stephen King himself.
Yeah,
the only time he'd done that.
He appears, I think, as like a funeral director or like
I love when he spots himself. Like his greatest performance was he's in Creepshow by that with the guy that gets swallowed by the fern alien.
Yeah, he turns into a plant. Yeah, he does the Hitchcock thing where he has to appear in his own movie. But also, I'm gonna honorable mentions would be Children of the Corn, which I think became a series of 9 movies, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think they're still going, yeah.
And then Sometimes They Come Back, which again, just a tiny story and a compendium of stories.
Yeah.
And again, movie's not that good, but then they make 2-3 sequels afterward. It's mind blowing that how much they milk some of King's work, and he gives the go ahead on a lot of the stuff. And like we saw in Silver Bullet, he actually writes the screenplay, so I know he's okay with this. It's just, I think that's the most annoying part about Stephen King is his work is great. You think of all the good stuff he's written, and but then he does things like that, and you're just like, dude, you don't need the paycheck. Why did you put this out? It's a little frustrating when you see how much he signed off on, I guess you could say.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that story because there's an anecdote that kind of attests to that. So he got kind of sick of a lot of his movies doing crappy in the box office. So when he joined forces with Rob Reiner to form Castle Rock Entertainment, and Misery was the first offshoot of that, he set up this new kind of practice where he would sell that studio the rights to his film for $1. Mm-hmm. And he would contingency would be that he would get script approval and a percentage of the profit, right? So that's how he. So every movie he's done since then, which all have tended to be very, very good, has been after he said, okay, I'm not letting other people take whatever I've constructed and break it down into some Hollywood schlock, So since they started doing that, his films have increasingly got better. In quality, but
so no more
of that. Yeah,
no more Tommy knockers. You're gonna say.
More Tommy knockers. So that leads me to mine. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie, but it's called A Good Marriage.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I think it's a short story from like Danse Macabre or something like that. But we watched it because hey, it's a Stephen King movie on Netflix. Let's watch this, and it stars Anthony LaPaglia and Joan Allen. And the premise is that this Joan figures out that her husband of 27 years ends up being a serial killer. And it's an extremely slow burn, and not a lot happens, and it's just very quiet, very dull, very painstakingly odd movie that I sat through saying, that was Stephen King, really? So that's one of my least favorite ones. I think Dreamcatcher's in there too.
Oh, yeah.
And again, this is a really cool book, and there's elements of Dreamcatcher that are kind of neat. But I think that falls into what you said before, Mike, about that first person omniscient. The whole final battle of that thing takes place in the characters' minds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like their stored memory and this bond that they have as kids. And it doesn't, I don't think there's a clever way that you can extract that and put it on film, but they gave it a shot anyway. And you think, Stephen King and Jason Lee and, Morgan Freeman, this can't be that bad, right? Yeah, it is. not that good. Pretty gross, actually. But I was kind of disappointed in that. But again, the book itself is fun, and the movie's watchable, but it's just not very happy about that.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah.
You had you had the lesser Wahlberg in that one.
Yeah, right. On the atomic element of Wahlberg's, he's on the lesser element. But yeah, so we've been talking for 20 minutes, Mike, and we haven't even talked about Christine or Cujo or
Firestarter,
and these like ridiculously iconic horror films. But just gives you some appreciation for the scale and scope of what this guy has contributed to our lives and how much he's scared us for the last 65 years or whatever. So. All right, but sadly, Mike, that's going to have to bring an end to part one of our Halloween spectacular Werewolf, Their Wolf, Mike. But before we leave, guys, some housekeeping. Remember, you can check us out on Instagram. We're at the appropriately named Grumpy Nostalgia. Check us out there. We have a YouTube channel. Check us out. Maybe you'll be the one. Who knows? We have a website called grumpynostalgia.buzzsprout.com. Check us out there. It's got an entire archive of all of our shows, including information about us. Which we know you're dying to have. So
and you answer the call of Gondor. Suggest a movie or help us out here.
Yeah, we don't kind of know what we're doing. If you got something better, we want to hear it. We're happy to take a different lead. We cannot drive this bus ourselves. So
that's right.
It is. And if you feel compelled to send us an email, we brought you blood boiling where there's so much rage, you can send us a long, detailed letter explaining all of our deficiencies by sending that to nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com.
Hey, did you know that Corey Haim was in Dream a Little Dream?
I did not.
Okay.
You sure it's not Corey Haim?
Haim.
But anyway, there's more spooky movies to come, guys. So this is just part one. We're just getting warmed up. So we hope you enjoyed this one. And we got a full month full of scary movies here about those werewolves, Mike.
All right. Fascinating.
Yeah. So, Mike, anything else you want to say before we head out of here?
I'm going to go drink a Rheingold, you booger.
Yeah, I'm going to go make lemonade in my pants. All right. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we'll see you again next time.
I wrestled a bear once, 750-pound black bear.